creating Asians, this, that, everybody was one, then became, I'm Asian, I'm an African,
Billy's referring to the Anunnaki after the Tower of Babel incident, which we all know that they changed their language, but Billy's saying that they actually changed the characteristics of the people, so they ended up becoming Asian, African, Indian, different colours, different cultures and everything else. Now, unfortunately, I've never seen the evidence of that, and I would really like to see that, Billy. But what I have seen is evidence that different hominids around the world had bred with different hominids. So in other words, Homo erectus has bred with Neanderthal, humans bred with Homo erectus, and so on, which is where you get all the different styles of people. Not because the Anunnaki genetically went round and modified every single person. That I can't see happening. So if you've got any evidence of that, anyone, that Anunnaki genetically modified different races, let me see it.
Guys, I'm one of the foremost world leader in the knowledge on ancient texts and tablets, scriptures, papyrus, and cylinder scrolls. And guess what? It all...
So Billy's just said that he's one of the foremost leaders. The only problem I have with that, and no disrespect to him, is I show evidence. He does a lot of sound bites, and unfortunately the sound bites that he's done, I've picked holes in. I could probably do it virtually on every video, and I show evidence where his comments are wrong. So in order to be one of the foremost, you can't have people like myself finding errors and actually showing the evidence where your comments are wrong. Now obviously if you showed evidence, then that would be different. So if someone's pointing out your errors, then surely that one then would be the foremost expert. No, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm ashamed to tell you this story, but it's a true story, and it comes from Ivan Finkel, who is the creator of the British Museum, and he's got these Sumerian tablets, and there's one particular cuneiform tablet that talks about an Assyrian person who writes to a pharaoh in Egypt. And he says, how are you? How's your family? How's your livestock? Blah, blah, blah. By the way, I still haven't been paid for my daughter. So basically, this guy had sold his daughter to the pharaoh. And this happened all the time in the newer period, not necessarily when the Anunnaki were around. So this is way later. This is about 800 BC. So this pharaoh stushed him and kept his daughter. And the actual video, if you want to go and watch it, is brilliant. It's called Ivan Finkel, and there's a cat there. Voices Out of the Darkness.
Chapter 10. Atlantis. Before I go into detail about where it was and who lived there, we need to look at where Atlantis is mentioned in ancient times, so that we can see why other researchers are looking in the wrong place. Some of the most notable mentions of Atlantis include Plato's dialogues. The earliest and most significant reference to Atlantis can be found in two of Plato's works, Timaeus and Critias, written around 360 BC. In these dialogues, Plato describes Atlantis as an advanced civilization that existed around 9,000 years before his time, which had conquered much of Western Europe and Africa before ultimately being lost to the sea. Ancient Greek and Roman writings. Some other ancient writers, such as Pliny the Elder and Strabo, also made passing references to a land or island that might be interpreted as an early reference to Atlantis. The Egyptian priest in the Critias dialogue. Plato tells a story in Critias of an Egyptian priest recounting the history of Atlantis to the Greek statesman Solon, which was then passed down through generations. Ignatius L. Donnelly's Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, 1882. This work is one of the most famous modern books on the subject of Atlantis. Donnelly gathered various ancient sources and argued that there was an advanced civilization in the Atlantic Ocean that was destroyed in a cataclysmic event. Edgar Cayce's readings. The famous American psychic Edgar Cayce claimed to have access to information about Atlantis in his trance-like state. His readings suggested that Atlantis was an advanced civilization with incredible technology and spirituality that ultimately fell due to its misuse of power and technology. The Emerald Tablets of Thoth are a series of ancient Egyptian texts that have become a part of the Western esoteric tradition. These tablets are attributed to Thoth, the ancient Egyptian god of wisdom and writing, who was believed to be the author of various mystical and magical texts in Egyptian. Some translations say Thoth was an Atlantean. As mentioned, Plato is a huge part of the story around Atlantis. We have to rule his account out, unless we can find other evidence to match what he says. I'll explain why in a moment first. Let's look at who Plato was. Plato, 428, 427, or 424, 423, 348, 347 BC, was an ancient Greek philosopher and mathematician known for being one of the most influential figures in Western philosophy. He was a student of Socrates and the teacher of Aristotle. Plato founded the Academy in Athens, one of the earliest institutions of higher learning in the Western world. His philosophical works, such as the Republic and the Symposium, explored various topics, including ethics, politics, metaphysics, epistemology, and the theory of forms. Plato's ideas have had a profound impact on Western thought, and his works continue to be studied and debated by scholars and philosophers to this day. Plato wrote numerous dialogues and letters throughout his lifetime. His works are typically in the form of dialogues, featuring his mentor Socrates as the protagonist in many of them. Some of his most famous works include The Republic, a dialogue discussing justice, the nature of the just individual and the just state, and the role of the philosopher in society. Symposium, a philosophical text exploring the nature of love, featuring various speeches by different characters discussing the concept of love. Phaedo, a dialogue recounting the final days of Socrates, particularly focusing on his thoughts about the immortality of the soul. Phaedrus, a dialogue addressing the nature of rhetoric, the soul, and the power of love. Apology, a record of Socrates' defense.
This video I'm about to record is really important. It basically proves who Jesus' father was, as already done by myself, but it backs it up. So I've already done a video called Jesus' Real Father Named. It's on YouTube, you can go watch it. It's on TikTok, etc. Jesus' Real Father. Now, in that, I said that Marduk was the person that ended up wanting to be monotheism, and that Marduk, I'm not spoiling it, but Marduk was Jesus' father. Now, it was an educated guess. Now here, in what I'm about to show you, shows that Marduk was around at that point and did want monotheism. So just watch this. This is Ivan Finkel, curator of the British Museum, talking about a particular tablet.
And Cyrus had this marvellous cylinder written out to explain the difficult thing to the Babylonians, the Iraqis, that from now on a Persian was going to be in charge. And the way he did it was he wrote an inscription on this famous cylinder explaining how the Babylonian god Marduk had picked him out over the border in Iraq, what it was Iran, it was Persia, picked him out, singled him out and said, Cyrus, when you grow up, you are going to be king of Babylon under my protection. So he put the invasion cleverly as being due to the king of Babylon. Marvel, a master stroke. And it's such an important text that this was loaned to the Tehran Museum a few years ago. It's the first time it had been there, and there was a tremendous response. You can see all the photographers going like it's a film star, and in a way it's a kind of film star. It's such an important thing. So there we are, the Cyrus cylinder. It's now safely back in the museum.
So basically that proves that Marduk was still around at the period where Jesus would have been created. And now this is the next bit on a different tablet. Have a listen to this.
God. In this officious and straightforward fashion, they were literally absorbed into Marduk as the one God. And it is the beginning of the idea of monotheism. It is the moment when polytheism, pantheism in Mesopotamia, with so many gods and goddesses, evolved massively down into the idea that you have a single deity into which they are all absorbed, and in due course is a crucial contributor to the Abrahamic, the monotheistic religions of Judaism, Islam and Christianity.
So absolutely everything I've already said, now with evidence that Jesus' father was Marduk, was the monotheism. Watch the video because I go through it. It's 20 minutes long. It's a documentary I made. It's on YouTube, and I explain why Marduk ended up wanting monotheism. It's to do with Egypt. It's to do with his ego and everything else. So I think now that this video here is been basically approved by by the British Museum. So thank you. I'm very proud of my research here, as always. I'm shocked. This person's told me to go away and watch Ancient Aliens to learn. He's also said on another post that my research is out of date. Although this person follows me, clearly he hasn't actually watched any of my videos. So instead of me saying, hey, I'm the one that tells Ancient Aliens where they're wrong with evidence, I'm the one that shows where the other researchers are wrong with evidence, pretty much I'm the main guy without sounding big-headed. So instead of me going through and explaining to this person that, really what you should be doing is watching my videos instead of listening to other people, I thought I'd just let anyone that follows me just post up and say whether or not you feel that my research is up to date and probably the best. If you don't feel that, obviously write that, but please be honest and let this person know, because I don't want this person to keep telling me to go and watch other people's videos when I've already debunked those videos. So yeah, honestly, it's not intentional that I keep picking holes in everything that Billy says. It's just his videos keep popping up from different people in front of me, and you know me, I like to give the evidence because I can't just make up stuff. So anyway, let's have a listen to what he says now.
Noah and the flood was written in the Emerald Tablets 4,400 years before the...
So as you know, I've done videos on the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. I've read them, crossing them so many times, and I've never ever came across anything to do with the deluge in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth or the Great Flood. So I thought, let me just double check that. So I asked ChatGPT, and of course ChatGPT also says no. So along with all my other videos, I'm still waiting for evidence of the many things that I've asked Billy for. I know it really comes across like I'm picking on him, but I go by evidence, and I can't have people telling me that they've watched Billy and that I'm wrong when I give evidence. So I need evidence of this.
Chapter 11. Vampires, Zombies, Werewolves. More fiction, or is there something to these? Vampires. A vampire is a mythical creature often depicted as an undead being that survives by consuming the life essence, typically in the form of blood from living creatures. While folklore varies across cultures, common characteristics of vampires include a fear of sunlight, shape-shifting abilities, heightened senses, and immortality. Modern literature, film, and television often portray vampires as alluring and influential figures. The origins of the vampire date back to ancient civilizations worldwide. Accounts of blood-drinking spirits and demons emerged in ancient Mesopotamia. However, the modern understanding of vampires stems from Eastern Europe, particularly Slavic regions. Slavic folklore during the early Middle Ages introduced the concept of the undead returning from the grave to prey on the living. The term vampire originated from various languages, with the English term derived from the French vampire and influenced by the German vampire, ultimately tracing back to the Serbian term vampire. While the precise etymology remains debated, it likely has Slavic roots. The contemporary portrayal of vampires was notably shaped by literature, particularly Bram Stoker's 19th century Gothic novel Dracula. Stoker's depiction of Count Dracula, a Transylvanian noble with a thirst for blood and supernatural abilities, contributed to establishing enduring vampire characteristics in modern culture. Since then, vampires have become a prevalent theme in various media, continuously evolving to match modern storytelling trends. Now let's examine this in sections. Do any creatures on Earth subsist on blood? Several Earth-dwelling creatures sustain themselves by consuming blood. Some examples include vampire bats. Most famously associated with blood consumption, these bats inhabit Latin America and feed on the blood of cattle, birds, and other animals. With their razor-sharp teeth, they create small incisions and lap up the blood with their tongues. Parasitic leeches. Certain leech species attach themselves to various animals, including humans, and feed on blood. They secrete enzymes that prevent blood clotting, allowing them to feed for extended periods. Parasitic worms. Certain parasitic worms, such as hookworms, feed on the blood of their hosts. These worms attach to the intestinal wall and consume blood, which can result in severe health issues for the host. Do any creatures fear sunlight? Numerous creatures avoid or fear sunlight for various reasons, although they do not possess the supernatural aversion to sunlight commonly associated with vampire lore. Examples of creatures that typically avoid sunlight include nocturnal animals. Bats, owls, and certain species of rodents are nocturnal, primarily active during the night to minimize the risk of predation. Specific insects. Some insects, including moths and fireflies, are more active at night and attracted to light sources. However, many insects are active during the daytime and do not fear sunlight. Deep-sea creatures. Certain fish and invertebrates living in the depths of the ocean have adapted to the darkness of their habitat and may be sensitive to sunlight or bioluminescent light. Although these creatures do not perish in sunlight, their behavior reveals their aversion to it for various reasons. Can a human survive solely on blood consumption? While humans can consume small quantities of blood as part of specific diets or rituals, it is not a sustainable or healthy source of nutrition. The human body requires a balanced diet containing carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals for proper functioning. Blood alone does not provide all the necessary nutrients in the required quantities for sustaining the body. Moreover, consuming blood poses significant health risks, including the potential transmission of blood-borne diseases like HIV, hepatitis B, and hepatitis C, among others. Therefore, directly consuming blood is both perilous and strongly discouraged. Some individuals consider the succubus to be the original vampire. A succubus is a demon.
It could have been some type of a craft, or at least a DNA bank.
Billy is talking about Noah's Ark and saying that it could be a spaceship or it could have been a boat similar to this. Now, that's like me saying there was a Jesus or there may not have been a Jesus. It's a bit of a flip-flop answer when we've actually got this guy here who has actually in his possession the actual original tablet from Sumerian times. And the tablet talks about how the boat was built. And there's also other translations of different texts, which is basically saying the same thing, that the boat has got to be made out of wood and the bitumen's got to be strong. And it tells you how to build the boat, basically. So why Billy was talking about possibly a spaceship when we've literally got the texts that tell us, and there's no evidence that it's a spaceship. So we might as well go where the evidence is, which is a boat. Wood.
Chapter 12. Dowsing and Ley Lines. Dowsing, also known as divining or water witching, is a centuries-old practice used to locate underground water sources, minerals, archaeological artifacts, and even lost objects. Practitioners, known as dowsers or diviners, use dowsing tools, often in the form of a Y or L-shaped rod, pendulum, or a pair of bent wires, to detect the presence of the desired target. The origins of dowsing are difficult to trace, but the practice has been documented in various cultures throughout history. Dowsing has been used by different civilizations, including ancient Egyptians and Chinese, as a method to find water sources in arid regions. The technique was widely employed in Europe during the Middle Ages and later brought to the Americas by early European settlers. The dowsing process typically involves the dowser holding the dowsing tool and walking slowly over the area where the target is believed to be located. When the dowser passes over the target, the dowsing tool is said to respond, indicating the presence of the desired object or substance. The specific reactions of the dowsing tools vary among practitioners. For instance, the rods might cross, the pendulum might swing, or the wires might move inwards or outwards. Despite its long history and widespread use, dowsing remains a controversial and pseudo-scientific practice. Many scientists and skeptics argue that the success of dowsing is purely based on chance, the ideomotor effect, unconscious muscle movements, or the dowser's familiarity with the area. Several scientific studies and experiments have been conducted to test the efficacy of dowsing, with mixed and inconclusive results. Dowsing is not limited to finding water. Some practitioners claim to use it for locating minerals, archaeological sites, missing persons, or even diagnosing health issues. However, the lack of empirical evidence and the reliance on subjective experiences raise skepticism among the scientific community. Despite the skepticism, dowsing continues to be practiced by some individuals and communities around the world, especially in rural areas where it is considered a traditional and reliable method for locating water sources. Let's look at some people who continually get paid to do dowsing, meaning they must be doing it right for people to pay over and over. There's a website called https://BritishDowsers, org/ on its homepage. It states, "Are you in need of a dowser's assistance?" In line with its charitable mission, the Society maintains a register of professional dowsers to aid anyone seeking the services of a dowser for various purposes. This register comprises Society members who have supplied references from clients or patients or other suitable evidence, as determined by the Society's council. These dowsers may charge for their services, and it is advisable to discuss the fees with them before formalizing any agreements. It's essential to understand that dowsing or divining is an art rather than a science, and, like many aspects of life, it does not come with guarantees. Please be aware that all our professional dowsers are expected to adhere to our professional code of ethics, which is available for review. The website lists different people that you can contact to hire for your dowsing needs. Let's see what they say about themselves. My name is